views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
I'm on.
Yeah, you're on.
New York City's in the 70s and 80s was a shithole, folks. The 70s were all about gangs and lawlessness, and the 80s into the 90s were crackheads on every empty park bench and lots of burned out buildings. All right, you had good, hardworking folks fleeing the boroughs in droves. The streets of the Bronx looked like a war-torn third world country. What stopped it? The NYPD. Like them or not, they saved the city. They're not without their troubles, though. They were living through the Warren Commission findings, all right? Misconduct, abuse of force, power, protection money, you name it, there was an investigation into it. But not just here. It was everywhere. Every front page of every rag published it. The public had lost every ounce of trust they had in us. The NYPD of the 70s, 80s, and 90s cleaned up in New York City with a long history of corruption, filth, and violence that every administration ignored or supported. All right, Koch and Dinkins, they put Band-Aids on it. Giuliani, he found a cure. And Bloomberg followed suit for 12 years. And then we had de Blasio, who took 40 years of dedicated police work and sacrifice and threw it out the window. Now, Adams is trying his best, but he won't be here long enough to see any changes. All right, what's it going to take to right the ship? What lessons from the past police work can we use to fix the present and the future? Now, some of the old timers would say hats and bats, right? Let's just club them all. And by clubbing, I don't mean going down to Ano Diablo on Tremont Avenue for a Presidente and a lap dance, although that would help. But that's not going to change it. All right, cops are disrespected at every turn, and not just from the mutts in the street, but from our own chiefs, commissioners, and mayors. Our guest today is pissed off, and so should you. I'm Tommy Werther, and you're in the Blue Room. And we're back. Welcome to the Blue Room. Coming to you live from the Tactical Financial Studios in beautiful downtown Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Is it lovely?
Lovely downtown.
Is it a Tony Hamlet?
Yes.
I feel like that guy was like a disco dancer in the 70s. Hey, Tony Hamlet here live from Phillipsburg, New Jersey. You guys missed that Hamlet joke. It's an old one, but it's a goodie. I'm Tommy Werther. We're here with Tony Cack from the Big Blue Cigar Review. Tony's with us. He had a show earlier today with Wayne Blanchard, the president of the New Jersey State Troopers Fraternal Organization, the STFO. If you guys caught the piece of that show. STFA?
STFA.org.
I have organ.
STFA.org.
It says here fat org. Oh, frat organization. Oh, okay,
Fraternal.
I misread that. My eyes are getting old. Oh, maybe I need. You know what? Maybe I need my old man glasses. Let's see. Oh yeah, there it is.
That goes perfect with your AIDS mustache.
Awesome. I love my AIDS mustache. What are you talking about? You guys had a good show?
Excellent show. Show. Learned about their cigar dinner coming up, and guys, check out the show.
STFA's doing one?
Yeah, STFA going to be a couple weeks down there at the Grand Marquis in Old Bridge. Great cigar dinner. I think tickets are $250 a piece, but 23 cigars, all you can eat, all you can drink, food. It's an amazing event.
Yeah.
Absolute amazing event.
Well, I found it's very. I've been to a lot of cigar events, and typically I found that the cigars usually aren't. It's not ever about the cigar. It's more about the camaraderie. It's about running into the guys that you haven't seen, men and women you haven't seen in a while. It's trading stories. It's touching base. It's raising money for organizations that really need the money. So, and you'd be surprised how many people go to cigar nights and cigar events that don't smoke cigars. They're going there for every other reason but the cigar. They get it for the food, the drink, the hanging out, the catching up.
They have a lot of that, but this event, I mean, the cigar manufacturers that are there, I mean, it's everybody. It's Ashton, it's Dr. Y. All the reps are there. They're handing out the cigars. It's a true herf. It's a good time.
That's good.
I mean,
That's
if
good.
you want to talk to those guys, they're all on hand to talk about their cigars. So it's a great
Very
great
good
time.
And obviously they're supporters of what we do. So, you know, it's not just going there and saying, hey, come buy my cigars. It's more about we support what's going on. And this is how we support, by coming to these events and sharing our wares. And you know, obviously being open to a brand owner that can tell you about their product is very different than reading about it in a magazine.
Oh, absolutely.
So-
And a lot of guys don't get that advantage. You know, they pop into cigar shops every now and then. You know, just like you, Tom, you know, you get to where you can when you can, but, you know, you're busy.
There's
Everybody's busy. Yeah, there's 6 of you, and same thing with them. There might be one rep for the whole Northeast. So
Yeah.
when you get a chance to break bread with them and find out about their products, it's great.
Well, it's I've been saying it for years. When people ask me, like, how do you deal with distribution and reps and whatnot for my company? And my fallback is always that obviously Mark DeFazio was my Jersey rep, my Staten Island guy, retired NYPD lieutenant. And I always say, if I had 6 Mark DeFazios, I wouldn't have to lift a finger. If I had 2 Mark DeFazios, my life would be so much easier. I'm so grateful for the work that Mark does for us, and he's so vested into what's going on Mark treats my company like it's his company, which is all you can ask for anyone that works with you, alongside you, is to treat you with that respect.
Absolutely.
And if I had 6 of Mark's, I could go to all those events, or I could go to any of those events, and it would be a very different business that I was in or conducting it. But I just don't have that, unfortunately. But anyway, a little shout out to Mark DeFazio,
Absolutely.
who actually might. I asked him if he would come on your show with me to review on some.
Sometime late June,
No.
maybe August. I'm not 100%
Which
sure.
which year?
No, I think
What year is that?
I
Is
think
it
we were talking
20
about June. We did text and we did
2026.
So
This June.
www.lineofdutycigars.com. If you're not smoking with the pig,
You don't even know what you're saying.
I don't even know the date yet.
Oh, that's funny. Where'd you get this fight? I can't know if I'm allowed to say that.
So-
fighting 16. You're that's
Wayne
right.
actually, Wayne
Right.
Blanchard from STFA. That's one of the bourbon tastings they'll be doing at the STFA. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff to be doing, but Fighting 69 is one of their rep companies. We actually happen to have a bottle laying around, so Mo was nice enough to go grab it.
I did an event at the Knights of Columbus golf outing out in Long Island about 3 years ago, and they had a Fighting 69 tent at like the 10th hole or whatnot.
Yeah.
And they were giving away shots and things like that. And I'm a bourbon guy. I love my brown whiskeys. It was phenomenal. That's why when I looked at it, I was like, man, I've had this. This was and it's
so
reasonably
smooth.
priced.
It's
And it's
so
a
smooth.
really, really good bourbon.
It is a
It's
straight-
Irish whiskey, I guess.
Yeah,
isn't it,
it's
bourbon?
Irish whiskey, but it's a straight up neat drink.
Yeah.
You don't need any ice. You don't need anything. It's a nice sipping whiskey.
Yep.
Nice and smooth, great flavors.
I remember when I had it, I was back when I was drinking like an
15.
animal, like a Viking.
15.
Tullamore Dew was one of my favorite. Everyone goes Jameson. I like Jameson. The Tullamore Dew was it. Red Breast does a really good Irish whiskey, which is great. That Fighting 69 was lights out. I was
Lafroig. I was into for a while. Very smoky.
that's
very smoky.
Scotch. It's Scotch Lafroig. That's why it's
very,
smoky.
very smoky.
Well, Scotch by most it's getting, depending on what region it comes from. Is it more peaty than others?
Yeah.
See, I like peat. A lot of people don't.
You like peat?
Yeah, I like.
Yeah,
the
where
peat.
do you like peat?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Do we have our guest hanging out? What's going on
We
back there?
absolutely
Mo?
do. Hold on, let me bring him up here.
Hey, Ralph, you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hey, guys, we're here today with legendary NYPD detective Ralph Friedman. Ralph, how are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me on, Tom.
It's a blast. I read the book, obviously. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, but I read the book, and I remember the reading it. You and I spoke a little bit the other day, being a cop from the Bronx as well as you are. Very different times, the 70s and the 90s. But when you read that book, there's two things you can take away from that book. There's two ways to kind of categorize it. Either this guy is so full of shit because this can't possibly happen, or holy crap, I can't believe this is real. And trust me when I tell you, it's the latter. This is real stuff. There's photos back in this stuff. There are people that you worked with that vouch for pretty much everything said in that book. It really
Well, this wasn't a self-published
we were
book.
reading in the police academy. These young kids would come out and they'd be in the street for 6 weeks and think back, well, this isn't the same job I read about in Ralph's book.
Well, this wasn't a self-published book. This was by St. Martin Press, so everything had to be documented. I had most of the proof already, but if I didn't, they put a fact-finding team led by a lawyer and his investigators to get the facts right. When you do publications for a major book company publisher, it has to be documented, which doesn't have to be on self-published books.
Yeah. It's funny because you read. I used to be more of an avid reader, but when you read a lot of people that and police stories are a separate genre, and there are different types, whether it's a procedural or real life autobiographical or biographical depiction of whatever the story is. This is real. Like this is no one does this. Is I guess the point. Like you read, there was the mafia cops in Brooklyn in the 80s, and I read that book, and it was like one or two events of dirty cops. Like this is as true. I call it like true detective, I guess you would, accounts of New York City, the Bronx in the 70s and 80s. Like people, especially the younger generation now, would read this or see those photos and say, "This isn't my block. Like this isn't Simpson Street. This isn't Fox Street. This isn't Longwood." So much has changed in 40 years, and it should, but you would never in a million years think that was the same corner that you stood on, 40-something years ago.
Well, times have changed, neighborhoods have changed, but the
police work has changed.
Police,
look at some of these photos here. I don't know if you can see, but these are legit. Like that picture right there, that isn't a photo of a building that went on fire a week before that picture was taken. That photo was taken 4 years or 5 years after that damage was done to that building, and it stood there. And that was so common. It was so common. Every other block had burnt out buildings and yards and cars just strewn the street, something out of a movie. And obviously, they made a movie right about the 4-1 precinct. And they depicted it, I think, fairly accurately. Did you? I'm assuming that you saw Fort Apache, the movie,
multiple times.
I was born in 71, so they're telling stories about stuff when I was 5 years old. But I can imagine that when there was a lot of rift there, the community members were upset because the movie was portraying, the blacks and the Hispanics, the worst of the worst. But it also portrayed the cops in the same manner because it was a very different time.
There was a tremendous amount of decent people that lived in the area that the cops were protecting.
Sure.
And the cops it was a very bad, tough, violent area, but there were decent people that lived there, worked hard, but just didn't have the money to move out.
Crazy. And when we put it out earlier, I guess a couple of weeks ago, that we were going to have you on the show, one of your fans, Neil Smith. Yeah.
Yes.
He reached out to us and said, hey, and he's never met you, but he's a fan of yours and he follows what you're doing. And Neil's got a storied police career himself. Asked if he could chime in, and we wouldn't drop any surprises on any of our guests. So you guys all know that we discussed this with Ralph. If he would mind Neil chiming in a little bit and talking about his career and what your work has meant to him and what intrigued him about this book. So Neil, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, how are you, man?
I'm great. How are y'all?
Oh, very good. So for those of those listening, Neil is from Macon, Georgia. We don't need subtitles. There is a bit of a southern drawl there, but if Neil speaks, this is coming from a New Yorker that speaks a mile a minute. If you just take a step back, everybody, and just listen, I think we'll be all right. We joked earlier that sometimes our guests, depending on where they come from in the world, sometimes they're a little harder to understand. I didn't find it at all in our conversation, but I could see where that might say, hey, what the hell that guy just say? So Neil, speak slowly. No, I'm kidding. I'm just breaking shoes. So Neil, what turned you on about Ralph's book, and where did you go from being a 30-year police officer yourself, to admiring Ralph's work and following what he does?
Well, I ran across Ralph when I got a magazine in the mail called Concealed Carry, and Ralph was on the cover. I didn't know Ralph at the time. And,
He was on the cover of a magazine you read.
yes, he was on the cover of Concealed Carry, and I saw Ralph and all the taps and said NYPD's most decorated detective. I was like, wow, who is this guy?
Yeah, legit. That's legit. That's legit. I when I see those as a fellow officer in New York City, when you see Ralph's, we call it a rack, but the reward rack above his shield, and you look at those numbers, and even I think most cops today in New York City Police Department wouldn't know what half of those things mean, Ralph. What does a star mean? Or how come there's a 10 on this? I go 10. No, you're missing a 0. There's 100. There's 100 on that MPD bar, and there's 100 on that EPT bar, and that's a commendation. And I mean that there's, again, it's not made up stuff. This is a time when cops were allowed to be cops. In a time when it was like, eat or be eaten.
Yep.
We got more cop cars coming.
Yeah, something's going in lovely downtown Phillipsburg.
Phillipsburg, come for the excitement.
Yeah.
No, for real.
So Ralph, you I know you got on the job in 72, 74, somewhere. It had to be early 70s, yeah?
No, I started as a trainee in 1968.
Oh my gosh.
1968, I was a trainee for 2 years because I was too young to be on the street. And I actually hit the streets in April of 1970. And I did about a year in uniform, a little over a year. And then I went into plain clothes, what was known as anti-crime. And I was assigned to the 41st Precinct, which we said before was known as Fort Apache. And I worked there like 4 years doing plain clothes work. And I worked with tremendous cops on the street there. I mean, the guys, I admired them all and got to work with them. And they were fantastic. And when I was a rookie there, being broken in by the older guys, they were great too. And you learn a lot on the streets in a ghetto precinct back in the 70s. You do 1 year's work there is equivalent to 20 years in a soft precinct.
Mm-hmm.
In our conversation that we had, Tom, you were in the 4-6, which was a very, very busy house also.
And
so you know exactly
probably
what
a quarter of the size. I mean, the 4-6 is only a square mile, but the 4-1 isn't much bigger. I mean,
not much bigger at all.
Right from the river up to like Prospect, Longwood to Southern or somewhere. I mean, it's not like huge. I mean, the Bronx in general is not big, but when you deal with a concentrated area of, I don't want to say not such a great people. I mean, again, we go back to the people. And just like you said in the 4-1, you had your good people. The good people are not the ones that come out and stand on a corner and praise you. It's the people that don't want you there. They're the ones that get the accolades. They're the ones that get the press time. The 4-6 is the same way. You have lots of good people. You just didn't see them. You didn't see them because they went to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. They came back at 5 in the afternoon, and they didn't leave their house.
That's right.
You didn't have dealings with the good people unless it was there to take a report against the bad guy.
Exactly.
So when they were protesting the movie being filmed there and saying we're being betrayed by a certain dynamic, that's all. The police, 95% of our work is we're bad guys. Like, we don't deal with good people. The firefighters, they deal with the good guys. We don't. We get handed a bag of shit and we're expected to fix it. So of course, our access is going to be to those type of people. Just the nature. It's the nature of the beast. Was there the academy a month, 6 months? Like, what was the process? You said you were in training for 2 years, like a cadet program type of thing, or what was the beginning?
It was actually called a police trainee program. It wasn't cadet stuff like that. It was police trainee that we actually did police work indoors. I was hired as a fingerprint technician, and then I went to answering phones when they invented 911. And then I went into the police academy when I neared 21 so that I could do the gun training. And the academy back then was 4 months exactly.
Mhm.
And it was 3 hours of physical fitness, 1 hour meal, and 4 hours of classroom training in law and rules and regulations and justification of force and all those kind of things.
I always found that the law portion of that really didn't apply to us nearly as much as, I mean, I think a lot of the law training could have been replaced with common sense training.
Yes.
You don't need to know that there's a law that says you can't, smash a guy's face in. It's just common sense. You smash a guy's face in when he needs to get his face smashed in.
I'm glad you
didn't.
said that. I've always said that just tell me when I can and can't put handcuffs on somebody. The minutia of the law, like what degree I'm charging them with, and that's all going to be settled back at the house.
That's someone else's problem.
Identify crime. Tell me when I can put handcuffs on people, and we'll figure the rest out when I get them back to the building.
I think a lot of it has to do with liability. That if you trained, you're taking a 20, a 21, 22-year-old kid and giving them a gun and sending them out there onto a street corner and telling them, do good. How can you do that and only train them for 4 months with that kind of responsibility? Boot camp is, I don't know what boot camp is, a couple months or whatever in the services. And I think that's part of it. Like they have to be able to say, we trained in this. And I'm not a big fan of, like, the old timers would say, oh, forget everything they taught you in the academy, kid. You're going to learn the job here, which is mostly right. The academy gives you that baseline, that foundation, but it doesn't apply to everywhere you work. Like you couldn't take a cop that worked in, say, the 109 back in 1975 and dump them in the 4-1 and expect them to be effective out of the gate, or, I'm going to say be a cop or work the way they should work. Everyone's got their own little thing, but yeah, it's a bit of a culture shock to be dumped in there. And Neil could probably attest to this. I don't know what Macon, Georgia was like back then, but when you come out of a place of, roses and butterflies and you're stuck into a cesspool, sometimes you don't know how to act. You don't know how to interact. You just kind of thrown in there and say, do good. Like, all right, now what?
Exactly. Like
No, Neil, was that similar to what was it like in Georgia? Was it the same, similar, like, yeah, here you go, pat you on the ass and send you out?
Yes, that was my experience. Like I said, I was brought up in complete segregation. South was a lot longer, getting desegregated. I went on Macon PD and got on the street. And I saw stuff I didn't know even existed. I called it. The city officials kept all that behind an invisible veil.
Was it a large area? Was it the area that you worked in? Was it a large geographical area? Like Macon Police Department, did they cover 15, 30 square miles? Like, what was the makeup of that?
Yes, probably somewhere close to 30 square miles.
So when we talk about the NYPD, we have precincts that are boundaries, and then within those precinct boundaries, there are certain areas and sections. Exactly. And I know from my experience and obviously just knowledge of the job and the city.
You were on the job, bro?
Yeah, I was on the job just for like a minute.
For real?
Yeah, like a minute.
Where'd you work?
I worked in the 4-6 in the Bronx.
Oh, you were in the Bronx?
Yeah,
you don't say, bro. I never heard.
Yeah, see the shirt?
No.
The shirt?
In 1977, when I started, we didn't have precincts. We changed shifts at the city hall. Got out, went out of a car, and the next shift got in a car. You was just assigned a zone. But,
so you went to work in a zone. Can you imagine going to that zone or even in that area that you worked in? So in the 70s, we'll talk specifically about where Ralph worked in the 4-1. You had a time when there were, I don't even know, 5,000 robberies a year, 6,000 a year. That's a lot. Homicides, 130, 140 homicides in a year in one little 1.5 mile square, maybe, Ralph, right?
Oh yeah,
I
we were
mean-
running about 100.
I mean, those numbers. For
The
for
robberies
you,
were tremendous.
well, crazy. I mean, you were in your career to over 2,000 collars. 2,000 arrests doesn't necessarily mean 2,000 incidences. You pull a car over and it's got 5 guys in it. 5 guys go on there. That's 5 collars. But
That's
just
correct.
the sheer numbers would dictate that for your career, you're doing 3 to 4 collars a week sometimes.
I was doing a little more than that, about 5 or 6 a week.
That's insane. That
Absolutely
is
insane.
just
Absolutely.
I can't even. For me, for someone that's been around the block a couple, I can't wrap my head around. I remember, in the '90s, saying to friends that worked in other areas, talking about how busy it there. August, Friday night or Saturday night in August in the 4-6 back in 95, 96, 97, you were doing 40, 50 jobs a night in a sector. Like maybe not 40, maybe 25 or 30. But that's still heavy. You're not getting meal. And I talked to my friends that worked in other places, and they say, well, we do that in a month.
Well, in the 4-1, I'll give you an example. In the 4-1, when I started out and got in uniform and went into a radio car, on a Friday and Saturday night, you would get the radio car at the end of tour with the lights and siren on and be backed up 30 jobs. And you would never catch up in the shift.
No.
And I'm talking about shootings, stabbings, robberies, past burglaries. The jobs were backed up at least 30, close to 40 on a Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, you show up, you turn out a roll call, right? You're on the steps waiting for your car to come in, because that's how in the NYPD you get a car assignment. You get a sector assignment, you get a car assignment. You can't go out to your sector until your car that's assigned to you,
That's correct.
that was being used for the tour before you, comes in. So you could be standing on the front steps waiting 15 minutes for the car to come in because they're stuck on something. And then when they get in, it's like, oh, here, like you said, the lights and sirens were still on the car. They literally left their last job an hour late or 40 minutes and handed the keys off to you and said, oh, by the way, here are the 10 jobs waiting for you. Have a safe tour.
They didn't hand you the keys.
I quit.
The car was still running.
So the keys didn't even leave the ignition.
They didn't leave the ignition. But you hope there was gas in the car at the time.
Uh-huh. So which meant in the middle of the summer, you spent more time in front of a fire hydrant with the kids with the coffee cans to cool the car off so it didn't go down on you, right? Than anything else. Like there's another.
And not only that, we had assigned to the 4-1. Just want to point out, there were 425 cops assigned to the 4-1, plus 200 TPF upstairs, Tactical Patrol Force officers. And that didn't count all the people that came into the 4-1, what we used to call poaching. We had borough narcotics, borough burglary, borough robbery. You had citywide. They would all come to get their activity, and narcotics units coming in to get their activity in the 4-1 because there was so much going on.
No, we had the same problem. We had narcotics and street crime constant. Kevin Gillespie was killed in the 4-6 on the Grand Concourse. I
remember that.
Was that 96 maybe? Street crime guys flooded the 4-6.
They go where the activity is,
of
where
course.
they need it, and where they're going to score good
100%. And they weren't even like designated in sectors. Like when they turned out, oh, you're going to handle that. No, they wanted their activity. They wanted to fill their quota. No, I don't say quota, but they were looking at collars because cops then didn't care about the quota. They're all about just working. They just wanted to work. They wanted the collars. They made the money. They did what they did. You didn't have time to, every command has it, to 1 or 2 guys, men or women, that just didn't kind of carry their weight, So you're handling 30 jobs a night, and this guy's got a grandmother that lives on the concourse in the 4-4 and takes himself off the radio for an hour to go have meal down there. Well, the other guys are busting their ass. Like that just didn't fly then. Like that didn't happen in the 70s and 80s because your locker was out the window or worse. Like just it is what it is.
Such a different time.
Well,
I was born in a
the
different
volume, the sheer volume of crimes. That's why when there just doesn't make sense that we go from a place like the 4-1 that had 130 or 140 homicides in 1972. I think they had like 6 last year or some crazy number. Like we know that they fudge numbers. We know they change shit. It just, I don't care how, you would have to have literally like Hiroshima, drop a bomb on the Bronx and start from scratch to go from in 40 years to go from 140, 150 homicides a year to 5.
Yeah.
But it was that crazy then.
You
You're a guy. I mean, I saw one story and I read it, and I take it for truth that you guys literally went out and bought your own shotguns.
We
And we're
did.
like, oh, we have a
And our
38,
own bulletproof
but we have
vests.
a shotgun in the back seat. Really? Where'd you get that? Oh, I went to Frank's on Tremont Avenue and I bought it. that's what I used on patrol.
We bought our 4-1 anti-crime unit. We bought our own vests, which were really too heavy to wear back then, but we kept them in the trunk in case we were specifically hitting a door. And we bought our own shotguns. You know, right around the corner, there was a sporting goods on Southern Boulevard that we bought our own shotguns.
And there was no, I mean, you're talking about a police department at that point was, I don't know, maybe 100 years old or something like that. An organized police force in one of the largest, if not the busiest and largest city in the country. After 100 years of organized police, you got a group of 10 or 15 guys saying, let's go buy some shotguns and carry those. Like, was there no guidelines? Like, you could just carry whatever gun you felt like carrying that day?
Well, you couldn't carry automatics and stuff. You had to carry revolvers. But guys brought stuff back from Vietnam. And when the BLA, the Black Liberation Army, was out and they were killing cops, specifically they were looking for black and white teams. They used to call them salt and pepper teams. And they were executing police officers. I worked for like 6 months backing up uniformed guys when they had runs because we thought they might be ambushed. Guys were coming in. We worked off duty, on duty, and guys carried all kinds of stuff back then because of the what was going on against police officers actually across the country. But New York was getting hit very bad.
But also a different time. I knew that, it's funny. I have a similar story where you had said that there were times where you kept a folder in your car of people that you knew were parts of different organizations that were wanted. So if you were off duty or in a place where you weren't specifically doing enforcement that day, it was like, oh, that guy looks familiar. He popped through my file. Oh, that's whoever. I'm not going to say a name because it's going to sound racist. So pick a name and go, oh, I recognize that guy. Yeah. Hey, Ralph, it's Saturday at 2:00 in the afternoon. We're going to the Yankee game. Yeah, but that guy's wanted on a blah, blah, blah. Like, people don't act like that anymore,
Well, and I'm glad Ralph brought up the Black Liberation Army. A lot of people don't know how vicious they were. I mean, that's Wesley Cook and the same group that they assassinated Daniel Faulkner in Philadelphia. They were absolutely hunting and killing cops.
Yeah.
They were a very violent
vicious
group. It was an offshoot. They were more violent than the Panthers. They were Panthers, Black Panthers. That the Panthers thought they were too violent, and they made they broke off on their own and became the Black Liberation Army. And I used to keep their pictures. I was looking for 6 of them that were known to frequent the Bronx and grew up. 1 or 2 of them grew up in the 4-1 precinct, and I used to keep their pictures on my dashboard of my 2 cars, of the police cars, of the young mob cars, and I kept them on my desk at home and on my nightstand. So I kept always, like somebody would have pictures of their kids or their wife. I kept pictures of them all the time.
Of perps.
That was one of my goals, to run into them.
That's funny. I remember going to went to the Garden for a detail, maybe 96, 97, and Mike DiCandido, who was one of the guys in my team in Warren Squad, actually probably after that, it was more like 2001. We're at the Garden and we're hanging out in front of the Garden and whatever. And Mike says, look at that guy. Me and 2 other guys are like, who is he? He had a warrant on this guy from a case a year earlier. And we all looked at each other like, well, what? And he takes out he had this full description, and he calls the office and he gets a guy, Nelson Talavera, another good cop I work with. And he said, look, blah, blah, blah. Is that still active? He said, yes. We stuck around and we kind of kept an eye on that guy. And Nelson left the Bronx. He grabbed another guy, left the Bronx, came into the Garden and locked the guy up in the corner. And I remember Mike had less time than I did. Just looking back, I'm like, how do you even, like that mindset that, yeah, like you're not off duty. There's no such thing. I mean, not that I would look to get into off duty stuff, but we were on the clock. So it just similar mentality of, yeah, I may not be working here, but I'm always working,
Well, I'll tell you a story where I was off duty and I was in a bathing suit. I was at Orchard Beach and I'm walking.
Was it a
down-
Speedo? Yes or no? Don't
No, it
lie.
wasn't Speedo. I'll
Different
tell you
time.
the truth. I had jeans on.
There you go.
Because I was always built good on the top, not on the bottom. Right? So I'm walking
Cover
down.
those little legs.
Sounds like Tommy.
Big upper body. So
Get the
I'm
jail
walking down.
Jews
I
that call
see this guy.
prison yard body you had.
I didn't have my gun or shield with me. I had it stashed somewhere because we were on the beach and swimming. And I'm walking on the boardwalk and I see a guy, and I'm in the Bronx, Orchard Beach, and I see a guy that's wanted. I just happened to see the poster in the last couple of days. I knew it was him. And I go over to him and I call his name. He turns around. And with that, I punched him in the face and knocked him out. And everybody called the police, and there's a detail assigned to Orchard Beach. And I say, I'm detective. I said I was a cop at that time. I said, I'm assigned to the 4-1. I seen this guy. He's wanted in Brooklyn for a couple of burglaries. They said, are you kidding me? How do you know? I saw his picture. I remembered it. They couldn't believe it. And then
That's
I brought
funny.
him in, and he got picked up by the detectives from the
Yeah, bro,
7-2. and it
bro,
was the
you
guy.
punched him in the face while you were in a Speedo? No, I'm sorry.
So
Jeez.
no, what Ralph's not telling you is that he had a Marlboro Red in one hand and an old Budweiser bottle in the other. He locked the guy up. They show up, and there's Ralph with no shirt on, tattoos.
Is there any question that was the
cigarette
scenario?
and a Budweiser, stepping on the guy's neck like, yeah, guys, you want this one? I got
never
this one for
drank.
you.
Any question?
Never
that was
drank
the
in my
scenario.
life and never smoked. Never did drugs. I still don't.
You never drank, really?
Never drank in my life. I started physical fitness young, and I just never developed the taste buds for that kind of stuff. I stayed away from everything.
I wish.
God bless you.
As I'm drinking my vodka and ginger ale and smoking a cigar. Yeah, I'm probably gonna outlive all of you though.
Probably.
Let's not get excited, bro. I've seen you lately. Once you shave that mustache,
So you guys could carry a shotgun, and no one would say, hey, you can't have that. Like there was no rules.
No, back then
that
it was
said,
such a different mindset. You know, like the big difference of today, the bosses and the politicians wanted us to go out there and get bad guys. They'd turn us out and say, get these guys off the street. It was very pro-active policing, and it was encouraged by bosses and politicians. You know, today it's a whole different ball game. I feel sorry for these cops. They have all the technology. We had nothing back then. You know, we had a nightstick, a gun, and your guts. Today, their belt looks like something out of futuristic from when we were on, and
It's
they don't let them
ridiculous.
police.
it's ridiculous.
well, and
They
you
don't
hit
let
you hit a nerve there. They don't let them police. We right now we have arguably the I wouldn't say the smartest or the most qualified. We have highly educated police officers. We have arguably, some of the best equipment. I wouldn't say the best, because we all know it's also a numbers game when they compare Berettas to Rugers and Smith and Wessons for when they went to the 9mm, who got the contracts. But we have the data to back it up. We should be the most efficient and smartest police department on the face of the planet, and we're just not. And I truly believe that besides the politician point of this and getting public opinion involved in it, I think it's common sense. I think I think you and I probably came from similar backgrounds, middle class, lower middle class, white bread neighborhoods, blue collar parents, didn't go to
Exactly.
college, just thinking, hey man, like my dad said, my father was a sanitation man, rest his soul. And he said, I remember as a kid saying, take all the tests. I always wanted to be a cop.
Exactly.
Take the test, take the PD, the FD, post office, whatever it is to have a steady income. And they weren't even thinking about retirement. It was the pension for 20 years, but the benefits. And I feel like maybe some of that is lost on not this generation, and I don't want to sound like the old dinosaur guys. Oh, well, I would have done it this way.
Job's dead, kid.
It's not. I think if you bring common sense back into it and you look at it and say, well, what is the intent of the law versus the letter of the law? If we can behave based on intent and not definition, I think we'd be a very different police department. Everyone's worried about what the letter of the law says, and you can't do that. And you can't put your hands around someone's neck while he's sticking a knife in your rib cage. You can't put your hands near his neck. I mean, common sense is survival, and we've gotten away from that, unfortunately.
Well,
and it's got to kill guys like you to sit back and watch this and think, "Oh my God!"
I see these videos on Facebook all the time. I read the papers every day. I live out of New York. I live in the northeast of New
Smart.
York country, but I still get the Daily News and the New York Post, and I watch TV every night, the news, and I watch Facebook, and when I see it, it kills me. What happened is, without getting political, the certain factions infiltrated.
Ralph,
the
you can get
system.
political. Let it fly.
Well,
Ralph.
it'll
Let
definitely
fly.
it all definitely comes down to politics. But even the police
But you
department
see,
within
politicians change, the attitude. It's the squeaky wheel gets the oil type of thing. Most people respect police. Policing is a noble job, and the people, the men and women that go into policing, all have good intent and they want to do the job, but they're not. They're being handcuffed at every turn. They
But
took
I think-
away stop and frisk. They took away stop, question, and frisk.
Huge.
They took away nightsticks.
Huge.
They took away everything.
Yep.
They
Stop,
took away
question, and frisk.
fighting. They took away.
Broken windows. I think, Bratton and Maple, they hit that hard, and I say it
That was
all the
great
time.
policing.
I believe in them, and I remember being a cop, and we had a captain named Steven Schmidt, and he was a good guy. He didn't hurt nobody, but he was a bit of dry-ish type, and his thing was on Friday nights, and I was in conditions at that point. I hadn't gotten to crime yet. I was in conditions, and he would have us on Friday nights go up to Fordham Road, Grand Concourse, 187th Street, 183rd Street, and he would have us take guys that were sitting on milk crates, because on the milk crate it said property of Darrell Farms or Holyoke Farms, and he would lock them up for criminal possession of stolen property. And we laughed about that because we're, Ralph, working in the 4-6 on a Friday night in August, and you're locking a guy up for sitting on a milk crate.
I never even heard that.
As a-
It sounds ridiculous.
As a cop, doesn't it sound ridiculous? In
Yeah,
hindsight, the guy that you took off that box sitting on the corner is not doing a robbery at 10 o'clock tonight now. That's
Correct.
broken windows.
Correct.
If you stop the small stuff, the big stuff will follow. And it
But
wasn't
that's a
until
little
years
less than
later.
sitting on a milk crate is less than small.
Dude, we had a guy that made us write summonses for the steerers. So you had the drug dealers on like 183 in Creston, Morris Avenue. They were tucked away. And then they had their steerers, which were like anywhere between 12 and 15-year-old kids on bicycles going up and down the concourse, directing drug traffic down to their guy. He would have us stop those kids. And because we couldn't prove they weren't doing anything, we would take their bicycles and write them summonses for, get this is great, no bell on bike. There's an there was an administrative code that said you had to have a warning device on your bicycle. And it was the same mentality. We were thinking like, we're taking kids for no bell on bike. We're taking that like ridiculous. And then again, look in hindsight, like, as much as you want to be the, full of puss and vinegar and go out there and lock everyone up and crash heads, like that was a good way to take the bad element from that place, that position they were in. We need to get back to that. I mean, maybe not bell on bike, but certainly Giuliani had it right.
You see, what they're doing is they're decriminalizing a lot of things. Look at the fare beating.
Yeah.
They talk about all the money being lost, and they want to charge decent people more. But why don't they just enforce fare beating in Manhattan? It doesn't even exist.
No.
They let you do whatever you want.
No,
They're
so
raising what I hear $600 to $700 million a year in fare beating alone.
But you know how they get that back? They get that back by putting all your speed enforcement or your red light cameras. Oh, and by that, the congestion
getting
pricing.
decent people going to work.
Yeah, it's all going back to
wrong.
the MTA because they can't monitor the toll fare evasion. Even on a bus, I took a bus about a year and a half ago, and I remember thinking I was the only one that actually I got there, and I never take the bus.
I had a creepy mustache.
Yes, and I didn't have the creepy mustache then. I paid my fare. I got my little Omni card. I scanned it. I got on. And then I went from where I live. I went, maybe 15 miles down the road, multiple stops. Nobody checked in. Nobody scanned anything. I found out later on what happens is that you're supposed to scan on the curb, and the bus driver's job is not to ask you, did you pay? It's like the honor system. But if there's an officer on the bus asking you for your Omni Pass or whatever the hell they were using then, not Easy Pass, but whatever, unenforceable. If you enforce the laws that are on the books already, you do not have to write new ones. So you're losing $600 million because you can't control the train people. So let's put that on the car people. Let's put that on the bus people. Let's put that on whoever. Again, it comes down to the middle class footing the bill for this. I think the amount of taxes that we pay, if they can find a way to make all public transportation free, and it cost me like an extra, I don't know, like, pick a number, $1,000 a year, and I don't even use it, I'd be happy with that. Honestly, I really would, because then I don't get frustrated anymore. I don't get frustrated at watching my tolls go up on my car and all these taxes and the congestion pricing to cover the fare for people that either can't pay it or decide they're not going to pay it. You see the videos of transit cops opening the gates in the transit system for people just to walk in because they're told, don't, the guy's handicapped, open the gate for him. 6, 8, 10 people going behind him. The cops don't care. What cop is going to get involved?
Cops do care.
It's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't care.
No,
it's just that
they're being taught not to care because it's not their job. They're told that's not your job. Don't do anything.
Right.
So
you have a generation of cops that are being born into this bail reform style. They don't want cops anymore. They want social workers with shields. They don't want. You literally have a generation of law enforcement that does not want the enforcement of law. It's insanity.
This goes back to the politicians and district attorneys. You see in Manhattan, cops make good collars, and Bragg doesn't even prosecute. There's his ADA is not to prosecute.
But there's a trickle down for that because when you deal with and there's arguments being made why and why not a mayor should control the police department. It should be controlled by an independent board or body or whatnot.
Well, I believe,
but the reality is that when the mayor goes to the commissioner and then the commissioner goes to the chiefs. I have a good friend of mine who retired as a 2-star at, I don't even know, Kenny had probably had 26 years on. And young enough to do another 10 years, who basically said, I'm not going above 2-star because it becomes such a political game. You're no longer a police officer, you're a politician. You can't defend your guys when Al Sharpton is out there hooting and hollering. You need to, at some point, even in the police department, regular Joe Blow guy becomes a politician by default. Dermot Shea, Jimmy O'Neill. These guys were Bronx guys. These were 4-6 guys. And when they got the nod, and they got the tap to be commissioner. But Bratton wasn't a cop in New York City. When O'Neill and Shea got tapped, everybody, he's a great guy, great, blah, blah, blah. And they had to follow suit. Jimmy O'Neill, his first act was suspending that sergeant in the Bronx that shot the kid. Him and his guys chased the kid into an apartment. Grandma had a baseball bat, come after them. The cops shot Grandma, protecting the son or the grandson, and O'Neill suspended the sergeant. I can't think of his name. Something with a T. Automatic suspension. They've become politicians, and there's no way around that. You look at the commissioners that we've had. Sewell come in and said, I wasn't happy about her in the beginning. She turned out to actually be one of the better commissioners. And why'd she leave? She saw the writing on the wall. She knew that something wasn't right.
Her be a police commissioner.
She got out. Now, Bratton didn't work in NYPD, and I'm a big fan of promoting from within. But we can show in the last 25 years that promoting from within hasn't always been the best. Everyone hated Ray Kelly. I mean, a lot of people didn't like Ray Kelly. Ray Kelly had such a long career in the NYPD because he came from within. And then he went to the U.S. Marshals and U.S. Marines. People may not have liked him, but he ran a tight ship. Ray Kelly, Howard Safer, Bill Bratton, these guys were professional police officers. A lot of these other guys that were PC were like minor leaguers. These guys were the cream of the crop. Now, they burned some guys along the way that either needed to be burned or they had to sacrifice a few for the cause of the many. But in general, I think those 3 guys rewrote policing in New York City. And you can go down the list of what Caban got caught up in the pay for play. He was an Adams crony. Donlin was placed there, not placed by the FBI, but Adams was basically told put Donlin in because they couldn't police themselves from within. And Tish right now, there's mixed reviews with Tish, whether or not she's going to be effective, how she sees things. The latest one was that she's saying you can't take your private vehicle to a detail outside your command. All right, so you're assigned to the 4-1 and you're getting election duty in the 7-0, but you're not allowed to take your car there. Well, how am I supposed to get there? How am I supposed to get to that detail? Like, that's just not, and then the argument is, well, what if they get into a car accident or they do something en route? Listen, if you're in the performance of your duties and it happens, then you're indemnified, or there should be indemnification.
Should be.
I don't understand why they've taken that back, but we have a history of, little rocky place. And you know more commissioners than I do. I mean, Jesus, you've been on the job for 70 years. So you
way to age him out, bro. That ain't right.
Well, I believe in promoting from within, because they have the experience, the knowledge, they know the technology. I bring in outsiders. Me personally, I don't agree with it. I think we have, incredible bosses that could work their way up. That was street cops. You start as a street cop and work your way up to PC. I feel you got the training, the knowledge, and the experience.
But it's a different look at Terry Monahan. Terry Monahan took the knee. I worked for Monahan in the 4-6. He was SEO. He's a good guy.
When you were naming police commissioners, that came to my mind. He had a fantastic career.
Yep.
Terry Monahan, and he ruined it like the last day. Ruined his whole career.
And a good guy.
A great guy.
He brought me into his office.
Politics
ruined his legacy.
Yeah,
politics ruins everybody. It really does.
In that one single act. By the way, like 2 months after that, he was filmed on the Brooklyn Bridge getting hit with a broomstick by a protester. The same protesters that he took a knee for to protect were hitting him with a broomstick on the Brooklyn Bridge a couple of months later. Like, I get what the
everybody
idea
lost
here.
Respect for him.
Yeah,
he did
and
that
it sucks.
He was very well-liked guy. But
and if I saw him in a bar right now, that wouldn't come up. I know my experience with him or my experiences, and that's what I live by. What you did after that, look, short of basically killing someone or raping someone, hey, listen, we had to make sacrifices for our job and whatnot. I still consider him a friend. I'd have a drink with him any day of the week and talk bullshit, and that wouldn't come up. But it did stain his name.
Oh, without a doubt. The problem today, though, is politicians are running the police department, and they never work.
Here we go.
One day.
Preach, Ralph. Go. Just run with this. Go.
Okay, to me, politicians running the police department is like a janitor in a hospital running the surgery. They have no experience. They got no balls to go into the street. You think they would walk into an alley in a ghetto precinct at 2 a.m. by themselves? And these people that make the laws on how cops could fight, never been in a fight in their life when they come out and tell you the diaphragm law, where you can't stop someone's breathing or blood flow in any part of their body.
Mm-hmm.
You need 4 cops to restrain a guy, where we used to handle it with one guy or something. It's politicians have no business in police work.
But the problem is the police officers, the higher ups, they become politicians. So whether or not they're doing it by demand,
but it used to be contained political.
Yes,
in the department.
This was the Pantaleo incident. And I had said, the average person does not know. The average person, the civilian, the politician, does not know what it's like to look somebody in the face that is 2 times your size, a career criminal, and say, hey, you're under arrest. And then ball up their fists and say, you know what? Not today.
Yeah,
they don't. You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. Once you tell that person they're under arrest, guess what?
It's over.
The fight's on. If that person says, nah, not today,
not today. Yeah.
Now you have to fight them. And the average civilian, politician, they don't understand that situation. They've never lived that. They don't understand it. Like,
and to my recollection, the last great boss to act like that, Rodney Harrison. During COVID, when all those shit was going on and people were saying at the end, saying, hey, we're not going into the park, or we're not following your rules. They were, and it actually happened in a 4-6. Rodney Harrison was chief of the department on video, chasing and tackling someone down on 188 on Grand Concourse between 188 and 187 and Fordham Road. Chief of the police department, white shirt, nice and shiny, big gold stars on his epaulet, chasing down a motherfucker, tackling him, and then getting him cuffed and handing him off to somebody. That's a leader. And he got squeezed out. He got squeezed out because I think he wouldn't play that political game. He was still a cop at heart and didn't want to be a mayor. He wanted to be a cop. Like, what happened to just wanting to be a cop? They have these ideas of grandeur. I want tickets to the Yankee game, or I want to be invited to this, that, and the other thing, or even worse than that is I lose my weekends off or my sweet game. I mean, Marjorie, the tale of Marjorie is just so bizarre and so far fetched, but that was common practice for years.
I already
right?
told you, my generation ruined law enforcement. When you guys got on, it was a $13,000 to $20,000 a year job. The benefits sucked. Nobody
I got
wanted
on,
it.
it was 9,600.
There
Oh
you
my
go.
God.
And
There
as
you
a
go.
trainee,
and
it was 4,000 a year we got paid in 68 and 69.
the fraternity was everything, right? And all these, that's when the Wall Street jobs and all that were taken off, and they made fun of you guys. And they said, "Well, you're working around the clock. You're working the holidays." And the people were getting hired right out of high school. It wasn't a job that anybody desired. And then all of a sudden, the pension and the benefits took off. And all these other, the Wall Street jobs and the private sector jobs became fragile. And they said, well, wait a minute, I'm in shape. I'm young. I don't have a criminal record. Maybe I'll go be a cop. But they had no interest in the fraternity. They had no interest in law enforcement. And they got in strictly for the pay and the benefits. And now that generation is now supervisors and now making policy, and they don't want.
First of all, no one's getting in it for the money. Starting pay for NYPD is what, 50 grand? When you start breaking down,
Wait, now?
Yeah,
No,
60.
no, check
60.
it out.
No, starting pay 60. You top out at 120 something, but that's with all the other
Yeah, I think
benefits
it's
they add in. They put a
57,000.
monetary value on that. You think it's 67?
57.
57. So we'll call it $60,000 a year, right? So at $60,000 a year as a recruit, knock off 15 or 18 grand.
Starting salary is 68.84 after 1 year at 61.
So think about what it's going to cost to live.
Year.
Yeah, but you got to live within the boundaries of rent in the 4-1. So in the 4-1 right now, it's about $1,000 a month per bedroom. So if you wanted a 2-bedroom apartment in the 4-1 off of Longwood Avenue, you're going to pay about $2,500 a month. Think about what you're taking home a month from your pay. Now you got $2,500 there. There's in an apartment. There's going to be some sort of housing fee. Then you got your car, your insurance, your food. You can't live on 60. This isn't. You're not. Listen, if you're working for $20 an hour at McDonald's and you're making $45,000 a year with 4 people in your apartment, that's one thing. New York City cops aren't expected to live like that. You need to have a living space, even if it's a studio apartment. You can't afford to live within the 7 areas that NYPD requires you to live in, and still actually live.
That was the deciding factor for my first job. I had 2 offers at the same time. It was the NJDOC and NYPD. And I desperately wanted NYPD, but they said no. And this is when they really cracked down on residency.
God.
No.
Oh my gosh. Can you
imagine? I would have been in
imagine?
the Bronx, and I could have been as cool as you guys.
That's not possible. That's not possible.
So that was when they started cracking down on residency. It used to be, hey, have some mail sent to this address and whatever, and that was proof enough that you were living. But they're like, no, they're really cracking down now. I'm like, there's no way I can afford to move my family into the city. But in the 5 months, I said, can you at least give me, the academy time?
So I think some of the bigger concerns with getting the manpower. I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are now. Probably 37 or 38,000. I think when I got on the job, I think we maxed out around 40 or 41 at some point during my career. That's how many cops there were. Now it's like 35 or 33 or whatnot. You've got a good percentage of officers that go to the academy, and then the day they retire, they're waiting for Westchester County PD and Nassau and stuff, waiting to take them. Other departments waiting to take them based on our training. You can't hold on to those guys. The attrition level for every cop that comes out of the academy, 3 to 4 are retiring, and you can't replace 20 or 25 years worth of police work with a kid out of the academy. You just can't do it.
Well,
we were learning from, and Ralph, you can attest to this. You said it earlier. You learned from the guys before. You said, I remember that you learned from the guys that you work with were superstars. They were studs. When I was in the academy, I had a sergeant named Ken Solosky, and he worked in the 103 or the 113. And I remember him telling the story in law class, saying something along the lines of, I worked in a really busy place. I worked with a lot of superstars, a lot of heroes. He said, I wasn't one of them, but I worked around them. And any cop worth a pound of salt that works in a place like that, that's their response. Yeah, I worked with some of the greatest cops ever. You're not going to say I was one of them, but I work with them. And that was your goal. Your goal when you got to the 4.1 back in 1970 or 1968, 1970. And my goal when I got to the 4.6 in 94 was wanting to be like the guys before me.
I saw
3,
guys
4,
I looked
5
up
years.
to.
These guys now, they're coming out and they're being trained by guys with a year on. We didn't want trained by guys with a year on. We were trained with guys 5, 6, 8, 10 years on, just like you were.
At least.
At least. And they looked at you.
Guys back then, the job was your whole life. Guys got out. It was very, very common. Guys had 30, 35, 40 years on the job. Coming on the job today, in the academy, they know their retirement date in 20 or 22 years later.
Yep.
Whatever the pension, they keep changing what the pension is, 20 or 22. But these guys, it's a stepping stone. It's just
Dude, they keep track of their checks, right? You get out of the academy, you're like, I have 327 checks till I can retire. Like, dude, your leather isn't even broken in yet, and you're counting checks.
Guys used to tease us. You're a rookie for the first 20 years, and like you said, your leather is not even broken in.
Yep.
That's
But funny.
It was your whole life. I think I would categorize it as today's cops are smarter, but yesterday year's cops, my time, the guys were tougher cops, and it was their whole life.
Ralph, I don't want to disappoint you. Today's cops aren't smart. Ralph, they're
Neil, the cops smarter in Georgia today than they were 30 years ago, Neil?
No.
No.
They may have college, but
That's what I'm talking about. College, stuff like that.
College is not common sense.
No, it's not. And my class was the first class that actually had, the class after me. We were the last class that didn't have the college requirement. And I remember thinking a couple of years after I started was I wouldn't have been here. Most of the guys I worked with, I wouldn't have been working with fast forward 5 years because we didn't have the college requirement. I didn't agree with it. I understand where it's coming from. I totally get it.
Doesn't make you smart.
I'm not, I don't support it, but I understand the policy behind it. It doesn't always make sense. I understand where they were coming from. I don't support it. I don't think it worked. As a matter of fact, we know it didn't work. Why? Because they've now they've lightened up on their physical restraints to get through the academy, but they've also lightened up on the education as well.
They've lightened up on
so
everything.
There's a reason. So were we right? I don't really know, but I do know that we weren't really that wrong, right? In thinking that way.
They've lightened up on everything, which is, I mean, especially when you start working in the idea of body cameras and all that, they're increasing the level of accountability and they're decreasing the level of qualification. And they're just setting everybody up to fail. They're hiring less qualified candidates and expecting a higher level of perfection from these candidates. It's insane.
So Rob, you've been sitting around for 40 years. When you retired in 83?
I'm retired like 42 years.
So what have, besides the 40 years of frustration, because I mean, I'm only out 20, and my wife will say to me often, like, why does that bother you? And it's sort of like, if your kid played college ball someplace and now the kid's 50 and you see all these policy changes within that administration, it's still, you get when you have so much invested, so much that you've put in blood, sweat, and tears, and then it looks like, first of all, no one remembers it. The only people that are going to remember what that was like are people like us and people that read books like from folks like you. It's going to be gone, like 9/11, right? We go, oh, yeah, they're going to forget. They're going to forget. Oh, they'll never forget. Trust me, they fucking forgot. Just like they forgot what they did to the Jews in World War II. They forgot. Society has forgotten, and they will continue to forget. So reminding them isn't a bad thing, right? Just saying, hey, guys, this is the way.
Well, it's also because I cared so much for the job. I love the job. I love the NYPD, and I care about the men and women who do the job. I think they're exceptional people that would take a bullet for a stranger, and you see the job that you love being destroyed. And when I get back to just saying, when I say today's cops are smarter, I meant with the college education, with the technology that they're exposed to and have access to, and the better weaponry. Everything they have is better to do the job today, which they can't do.
Yeah, they've given them all the tools, except that one tool,
the
actual ability to actually do it. Yeah, they've given you all the tools, and then they told you don't use them.
Exactly.
which is unfortunate because, it kills me when I see the taser guys and, you see the videos, you're like, tase, 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 or why are you not taking more police action? The state police, they did a car stop 2 weeks ago up in something with a B, Bovina, New York or something. 2 state troopers pulled a woman over for a stolen car. They pull her over. She starts resisting arrest. She takes out a knife and stabs them both. She stabs 2 state police officers on a car stop for a GLA. Now you look at that and say, or the kid in Philly, what's his name? Mark Dyer. He convicted of 3rd-degree manslaughter, but they didn't get him on the murder charge. Him and his partner car stop a guy. He goes against traffic the wrong way. They get to the car. The guy's in the car. He's got
the Owls kid. You talking about?
No. His name is like Vale or Dale. He's got the knife on his. It just came out like a week ago. Philly PD. He had the knife on his lap, and they shot him. That cop is going to jail now for a manslaughter. He saw the threat. He took action. Now we can argue back and forth on whether or not what he should have done. But here's a guy that actually did what he thought was right. I want to go home tonight. Right? That mentality should always be, I want to go home tonight. And it wasn't. It was for him. And unfortunately, now he's going to jail for it. Given the tools, but you can't use them. You're taught in the academy how to fight and defend yourself. Oh, you can do all that, but you can't put your hands on their neck. You can't put a knee on the chest. You can't put a knee on their back. Oh, when they say I can't breathe, you have to exactly. When we were taught, you fight to win. You don't fight fair. You fight to win.
Of course.
We can figure that shit out later.
If you pick a fight with a civilian on the street, that could go bad for you. You don't know what that person's capable of. You don't know what's going to come of that. What would make you think as a civilian that it would be any different if you pick a fight with a cop? If you pick a fight with a cop, that could go bad for you. Too fucking bad.
It should go bad for you.
Of course. And too fucking bad. What would make you think that you have any more protection? They know. And
because they're mentally ill, and you're supposed to know they're mentally ill. Seriously, you're supposed to know the mental capacity of every person you come in contact with.
They hide behind.
They also know that in this atmosphere, in today's world of policing, they could get away with it.
Sure.
People lost respect for police.
Yes.
When I was in the academy, we were always taught to overcome them, crush them. If they try to pick up your hand and they make the decision. If you tell someone they're under arrest, they put their hands behind their back, the game's over.
Yeah.
But if they make the decision. If they're going to fight me, I'm going to fight to win.
100%. We respond to their decisions. That's it.
I'm going to do my job.
We don't initiate any of this. We're taught to respond to their decision.
I'm going to do my job. You decide whether we're on YouTube. Yes.
People.
Yeah, my line. We didn't have YouTube. We had nothing back then. My line was, you could go the easy way or you go the hard way. It's your choice.
Exactly.
They make the decisions. Cops react to what they're faced with.
So let's get we're nearing a break time. I totally want to get back to the book and where it could be found. Because honestly, my wife bought it for me years ago, and I've read it twice, and it's great, for a cop that kind of, and Ralph and I joked a little bit when we spoke the other day that the statute of limitations is close, I guess mostly expired for anything I may have done completely within the law, and certainly they don't even make the laws anymore when Ralph was a cop. That
way to age him out
again.
Yeah,
no. It was different times, man. You could get away with things
when I was
then.
A cop, if you had a sixth sense or a gut feeling and you followed someone or you tossed them for a gun, this was good police work.
Sure.
Today, it's interpreted as you're violating their civil rights. But this was good police work. If you pick up on something and you find a criminal or someone committing a criminal act, that was good police work. You follow instinct or gut feeling, or you got this sixth sense. That was good police work. How it turned into violating people's rights when you're protecting the public is beyond me.
But this isn't new, though. I remember, and I think I told Mo not too long ago, probably a little bit story. I grabbed the guy.
Got my name right.
Yeah,
that warms my heart.
I grabbed the guy on Featherbed Lane. Right. He did a little furtive movement. He's an older guy. He's around 50 or so. I say older because I was like 26. We get out. He's got a beer in his hand. We're bullshitting him. He's going to work. Again, an anti-crime. You always ask the question, you have any weapons? The guy says to me, I have a gun in my front pocket. I swear on a stack of Bibles. He says, I have a gun in my front pocket. But he seems like he's cool. He's good. I go, do me a favor, put your hands on. He complies everything, puts his hands on the car. We cuff him, get the gun out of his back pocket, because that's where it was. Put him through. I swear to God. The DP's the case. They declined to prosecute. And you know why? I had this conversation with the ADA I had, not even above them, because it was above the pay grade of the ADA that drew the case up. She pulls me aside. She's like, I feel really awful about this. So what are you talking about? She's like, we're going to DP. We're going to drop this case. I said, what do you mean you're going to drop the case? How are you going to drop the case? Well, my supervisor doesn't believe that you asked him if he had a gun and he said yes. And I looked at her and I said, honestly, that's probably the second time in my career that anyone ever said yes to that question. I typically don't even answer it. It's like, if I think it's there, we're good enough. It's stop, question, and frisk. We're going to go through the motions. But he just seemed like a decent dude. I just bullshitting with him. Hey, like, hey, you have any weapons on? He's like, yeah. I go, oh my, like, I wasn't even expecting that answer. It was like, we were writing summonses for beer that day. And I drink beer on the corner all the time. Well, I used to, I don't write summonses for beer, but it was a reason to stop them and have a question, have a conversation. They threw the case out because they didn't believe that the guy actually said, I have a gun on me. Like, I did everything. You could do it by the book, and then you see that. Guess what's going to happen the next time that happens? You think I'm going to say I asked him if he had a gun on him? No. Next time it's, yeah, I saw it. It fell out of his pocket.
I feel the prosecutor was wrong because their job is to prosecute, and a judge or a jury should have made that decision.
Of course.
The crime was committed.
Yeah, we don't have court on the street.
Grand jury at the least, right? Granted, the grand jury is probably going to throw it out, but at least give me the satisfaction, or at least the audio court appearance, right? To go down there on my day off to tell you the story. They didn't even get that far.
Dismissed with the stipulation of probable cause. Yes.
So I saw that your copyright on the name has expired, and we can't get the book on Amazon anymore. Where can we find that book?
The book is available on Amazon.
Oh, it's Amazon.
TV series.
Oh, the series, the show. Okay.
Yes, the book is Street Warrior, available on Amazon. But the TV show, Street Justice, The Bronx, is now on Hulu, FICO, and YouTube Premium subscription.
So, and folks, if you want to see, watching the show is one, and I'm a big fan of reading a book of a movie. The book always tells, and any movie that you watch, for the most part, the book always is more detailed. It gives you more, aspect into what's going on than a movie ever will, because the book can take you 2 days to read, and they got to cram this story into an hour and a half, or in this case, a 40-minute segment or whatnot. If you like what you're seeing on that TV, you have to get the book. I'm telling you, this isn't me blowing smoke up Ralph's ass to say, I'm telling you right now, if you like gritty, real stories of the NYPD, you got to get the book.
We put the link in the comments.
It's not even. And we're gonna leave this with and do you have any chance you have the shotgun there?
Yes,
you still have the shotgun?
Stop it.
Yeah.
You know he does. Here we go. Oh, jeez.
Oh, it's
I'll show it to you. This is a shotgun we carried in the 70s.
Oh boy.
Oh, look at that. Get the fuck out of here.
12 gauge breech.
Got a pistol grip.
Look at that thing.
Did you add that pistol grip? It came with it. That's a breech. That's a side-by-side two-shot shotgun?
Yeah, 12 gauge side-by-side.
That's insane. When's the last time it was shot?
Stop it, Tommy.
No,
stop it, Tommy.
Come on, when was the last time that thing got shot?
Stop it, Tommy.
Don't know the statute of limitations, right?
There you go. Exactly.
I didn't
40 years ago.
I don't want to lovely downtown film.
I don't care about where it was used or how it was used. When's the last time a bullet went in that, a shell went in there and the trigger was pulled?
A few years ago, I took it to the range.
A couple of years back?
Yeah,
because that might be like a get together. We're gonna do cigars and drink, even though Ralph doesn't smoke or drink. And
cigars and bring your shotguns. Yeah, that sounds like a really great party.
All right,
we're beautiful downtown.
We're gonna leave. We're gonna leave with this story, and no one here is gonna say a word. I want to hear this uninterrupted. And I asked Ralph if there's anything off limits, and he said no, and he doesn't know that I'm going to ask him this question. It's not a big deal, but I want to hear. I want to hear the story from start to finish of you going out, having a date with a girl, and then canceling it for work, and she was setting you up to get killed. I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to enjoy it.
Okay. What happened was, this goes back about 8 months prior to that, right? That I made a call, me and my partner made a collar on an 8 to 4 tour. We made a collar around 3:30 of a purse snatch. We chased the guy. We were on the street, saw a purse snatch go down. We chased the guy and caught him, and I took the arrest, and my partner went home, right? So I was processing the arrest, and a CI, a confidential informant of mine, came in and told me that there was a guy in the neighborhood, real bad guy, that they knew from the neighborhood, and he was selling a gun. And he was giving me this information as a tip. And I went to my boss, and this was a good CI. You rate your CIs, if they give you 10 pieces of information and 4 are good, 5 are good, he's so-so. But if he's a guy who gives you 8, 9, 10 out of 10 pieces of information, always paying out, he's a good CI, right? He's a great CI. So I got this guy, and he's always giving me good information. So I tell my boss, I say, listen, I got a guy selling a gun right now. We got to get involved in this. So my boss at the time, Stephen Cantor, was the squad commander. He said, I'll be your partner, right? So we devise a plan because he tells us where it's going to be. And it was on a block where most of the rooftops were connected. The buildings were tenements abutting each other. So we decided that we'd go down at the end of the block. We'd climb up to the roof from the back so people don't see us and stuff, go up the fire escape. And we would sit where we'd be able to see the transaction go down. Because the guy, the seller, said, I'll sell you the gun on the roof. So the object of the plan was that the CI would get possession of the gun. And then we'd move in to make the arrest because we thought it was safer because the CI was supposedly on our side. But as soon as he got up there, we noticed 2 things occurred that were not in the plan. First, there were 2 perpetrators selling the gun. And the second thing was the gun wasn't a handgun, it was a long arm, 30-30 hunting rifle. So the plan, we still stuck to it that when we see the gun exchange hands, we'll go in and make the arrest. And next thing we know, the perpetrator selling the gun wanted to show the CI that the gun was operable. And he turns the gun on the roof and starts shooting down to the public as a wild sniper. So obviously at that time, we had no choice but to intervene. So me and the sergeant, we have our guns out. We start running towards the guy, screaming, police freeze. And with that, the guy turns the gun on us and fires. We open fire. And we shoot the guy a couple of times, right? I shot him a couple of times and I ran out of bullets. So I had to pull a second gun. And
Not the shotgun.
no, I didn't have the shotgun with me today. Didn't fit in my pocket at the time. So the second perpetrator runs around what looks like a chimney, but it was like what they call a kiosk. It looked like a chimney or something from the building, and I couldn't see him. The gunman goes down and drops the gun, and my CI hits the floor, right? So I start to proceed slowly with a second gun around the corner of this chimney. And all of a sudden, the guy comes at me with the knife raised above his head in a downward motion, like he's going to stab me in the head. And I feel my finger tightening on the trigger. And then all of a sudden, in a flash of a second, I hear a gunshot. And the guy goes down. I didn't pull the trigger yet, right? So it was my partner, the squad boss, came around from the other side, saw he was going to stab me, and shoots him in the back, and he goes down, right? And he screams to me, get the gun from the first guy, right? So I start to move past the guy, and he leaps back up with the knife, even though he was shot. So now I open fire, and I shoot him in the stomach and kill him, right? Now I go and get the gun from the first guy. He's alive.
Do you send flowers to the family every year now?
Yeah, just about every holiday. So we cuff up the 2 guys, the perpetrator and the CI. We make it look like he's a collar and wasn't in on it because we want to keep him as a CI.
Sure.
And the other guy is dead, and that's it. The case goes to the grand jury. I get justifiable homicide. The other guy goes to jail. He takes a plea on something, and the CI is back on the street. And now, 6 or 8 months later, I meet a girl on the street, and a pretty hot Spanish-looking girl, which
on
was
the
common
street.
occurrence back then. And we start dating, but we haven't gone to the next phase, So we make up a date and time, and now she invites me up to her house. We're up to the point where I'm going to be in her house, have sex with her, move this to the next step, right? So anyway, obviously it happens. I make
Hold on. After sex, the next step is leaving as quickly as you can, right?
quick, unless I want to split my pension with her, So, unless I want to give her my house and split my pension.
Exactly.
So I make a collar, and I can't make it to the designated time to go to her apartment. So I call her up, and we didn't have cell phones back then. This was, hard lines. And I call her and I tell her I can't make it. And she's saying, "Oh, you got to come over here. I was counting on this. I got a plan. I want to be with you." And I said, "Well, I could come over maybe late. I don't know when I'm going to get finished." I had voucher guns and, go.
That's when you call up Stu. That's when you call up Stu and say, "Stu, I got something lined up for you."
So it just got too late and I couldn't go. So I say, I'll come the next night. I'm off or whatever. And, I process the collar. Next day I go back to work, and I'm out on patrol with my partner, and we get a 10-2 forthwith. I mean, I know what 10-2 forthwith means. It means come to the house, and then comes to the house right away. But I didn't know what we did or what it was about. So we get there.
Could have been 1,000 things, right? At that point, you're like, it could have been 1,000 things I could be getting in trouble for right now.
Right. So we get up to the office, and I see my boss there, and he's sitting with 2 suits, right? So right away, our mind goes to internal affairs. We don't know what we did, and we only got like a second or two to decipher it. And the boss comes out, and he says, tells my partner, "Go back out." In other words, they just want to see me, right? So I go in there, and one guy was a lieutenant, the other guy was a detective, and they introduced themselves, and they're from the intelligence division. Can't imagine in the world what they want to see me about. So they say, "Are you dating a girl named Lucy?" I say, "Yeah." And my head's spinning now because I wasn't thinking of confronting, guys from the intelligence division. And how do they know who I'm dating, right? So I say, "Yeah." And they said, "You were supposed to go to our house last night?" I'm saying, "Holy shit." My head's spinning. I say, "Yeah." "Yeah, how'd you know?" So they said, "Well, we have a CI, and he's rated super high on their scales as being a very,
reliable,
good CI,
yeah.
right? Supplying good information all the time." They say, "Well, she had 2 or 3 guys in the closet with guns that when you got into a compromising position, they were going to shoot you." I said, "Wow." My head's spinning, right? So I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Well, about 8 months ago, that guy on the roof you killed was her brother, and she's been setting you up all this time."
Jeez. Fuck.
So she never got prosecuted because it would have been a he said, she said type of case. There was no recording devices. There was just good CI information, in the perpetrator world, and he had this information. And besides the case not being prosecutable, they would have blown the cover of a good CI.
Yeah.
So the case went nowhere. It wasn't going to go anywhere. They just told me, obviously, stay away from this girl. So she called me at the precinct.
Hold on.
You could have ridden a Lightning. I mean, I'm just saying.
A little bit. Yeah, meet me in my car, honey.
Well, I never had contact with her again, and she kept calling the precinct, and I never responded.
Wow.
And it died out. But
that's crazy.
Letting my guard down, didn't think I was leaving my guard down.
No, it wasn't even that. It was like,
it just shows how you could be played smart as I thought I was. I guess I wasn't.
But there was no reason. I mean, you're gonna run like rap sheets on her, and like how could you possibly even know that? But just the fact that talk about a what is the confirmation of you doing great work. You know, they set you up to kill you.
Well,
Like,
I had a lot of
fuck.
people that wanted to kill me, but I never thought it'd be a girlfriend.
No, so
Now
what,
it's all my life.
what did you do? You probably married the one that wanted to kill you the most. Right?
Yep. Oh, there you go. Yep.
Still with,
Good.
I'm
It's not
still
all
with
of
the
us?
one
Good move, Ralph.
from when my career ended. I'm still with the same girl. 42 years later, we're married.
Is she tired of the stories?
Yeah, she doesn't even listen to me.
That means your job is done. Perfect. All right, we're going to wrap this up. We're going to go to a break. Guys, thank you so much. This is Ralph. This was great. Neil, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The website's up where you can get the book. You can definitely get it on Amazon if you can watch the show.
Well, Amazon is where you
trust
get
me,
the
watch
book.
the show. This is just a little peek of what you're going to see. You won't find any host as entertaining as me, unfortunately, but I digress.
Well, if we had more cameras,
Yeah, we need
according
more
to Tony,
cameras,
yeah,
apparently.
we would be all right.
All right, we're going to go to a break, guys. All the information's on the in the message app here where you can find the book. Again, thanks so much for coming on, Ralph. I'd love to have you in studio here one day. We're in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Be great to have you in here, and you know.
Neil,
We'll
you
see what
got
we can
something
do
to
about
plug,
that.
Neil?
I got a book, Blue Truth, Liberal Lies.
That's a great book, too.
Yeah, as it states, it tells the what's coming to light nowadays in the news. The liberals lie about cops.
So that's called Blue Truth, Liberal Lies. Where can we find that book, Neil?
You can get it on Amazon.
We'll put the link in the
Yeah,
comments.
like-
Yep.
Blue Truth, Liberal Lies. Take a look, take a gander. All the stuff is available for you. If you like what we did today, you can put the cherry on the whipped cream and grab these books and take a look and support our brothers.
And it's not just politics. It has stories, things I was involved in,
Yeah,
kind of
well,
like
and we-
on a smaller scale.
Mhm. That's Amazon, guys. All right,
That's
we're
a
gonna
book that was ahead of its time.
we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and we'll be right back.
Beautiful.
Hello, friends. This is our tribute to George Wendt. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Bill Swirsky's Superfans. I'm Bob Swirsky. My brother Bill couldn't be here today. He just had his 13th heart attack this month. I thought we reflect upon the last season's outstanding performance by arguably the best team in the NFC North Division, the Bears.
Bob, the Bears lost 12 games last year.
Oh, but did you see them 7 wins, Mo? The Bears had the Redskins on the ropes.
You can't call them that anymore, man. They're the Washington football team.
What?
You're not allowed to call them the Redskins anymore.
Yeah, well, they told my brother Bill to stop dipping his butter in gravy before he put it in his beer. Tomatoes. Anyway, that damn Hail Mary killed us.
The Bears had a rough year, but they drafted a tight end and a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. That should help Caleb Williams.
Well, you know what they need, right?
I guess they could use
Ditka. They need Coach Ditka.
You think Mike Ditka would make the difference?
That's Coach to you, pal.
So you think Coach Ditka would be a better coach than Ben Johnson?
Coach Ditka don't coach no more. He plays.
He plays? Bro, you know he's dead, right?
No, we just dig him up. Right? We put him right in.
What position would he play?
Yeah.
Yeah?
He play them all. He play every position.
He'd play every position?
Yeah, you don't know. Coach Ditka once played against the assembled choir of the heavenly angels. God sent his best. Gabriel under center. Michael in the backfield. Guess who won? 172-16. The Bears. True story. And then God shrunk Coach Ditka.
Wait a minute. They shrunk him?
Oh, yeah. He was a little jelly. He's tired of losing. So we shrunk him down to 14 inches tall. 137-22. The Bears.
Full-size Ditka or mini Ditka?
Well, full-size Dicker, of course. But, Bob, God didn't like him, so he challenged him again. But not the football, the golf. Coach Dicker had a negative 200 handicap. You guys didn't know that. Dicker shot a 2 that day. Guess who won? The Bears.
Wait, bro, stop. I don't think you can have a final score in golf of 2.
Well, that's none you.
None ya?
Yeah, none your business. Anywho, thanks for having me in today. I'm going to go grab another beer. Anyway, God bless the great George Wendt and all he's done for the Chicago area sports fans.
100%. Rest in peace.
Yeah, good guy.
Norm.
Lots of good stuff he did. But the mustache was fitting, so we're gonna ride the rest of the show out in honor and tribute to the late great George Wendt.
Not a boy.
What do we got here? Yeah, we didn't touch. No, we didn't touch on that. We're not going to get to that. Blah, boom, blah, 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 blah. With the common sense, we did all this.
Wait,
bullshit.
that bear, Tommy?
Which bear? Oh yeah, that's downstairs. I told him we should call him Ditka.
I mean, honestly, in lieu of what we just did, yeah. I mean, I think Ditka is the.
I think it's fitting.
It is fitting.
I'm just saying. So we talked a little earlier about we talked a little bit. His name is Mark Dial, was the cop in Philly. That people say, oh, he got off. He didn't get the murder charge. He got the manslaughter charge. There's a lot of jazz going on with that. Whether or not the guy was in the car, he was in the car. The windows were up. The knife was on his lap. This poor son of a bitch is going to go to jail now on man 3. Does he land on his feet? I don't know. But again, it's another instance of cops doing their job the way they were trained to do it and then being punished for doing it exactly the way they were taught, a.k.a. Aaron Dean in Fort Worth Police Department, who
you got to do that, bro.
Thrown under the bus for doing exactly what the Fort Worth Police Department trained him to do.
So there's a new trend going around, at least X, the old Twitter, where it's the race war psyop. They're trying to stir all this up again before the summer starts, and they're calling for a pardon of Derek Chauvin. That case again, they're just trying.
Who's calling? Is that the race baiters trying to stir things up, saying, "Hey, Trump is going to pardon this guy"?
They're trying to mask themselves as right-wing MAGA people, whether or they are or they aren't. I have my own opinion. Of course they're not. Of course they're not.
Of course they're not.
They're attaching to that case because they know that that's a hot, that's.
But it's not though. It's not that case is dead and buried and it's over and it's
They're
finished.
trying to resurrect it.
I can't imagine what's to resurrect. So if you're on the side that believes
what's there to resurrect?
Yeah, no,
the
who's
riots and the burning. They want this.
So there's nothing going on in the Derek Chauvin case, and the people that want to burn cities down are saying, oh, there is something. They're going to release him, so now let's riot again and burn cities down to show that we don't think he should be released. He's not getting released. He's not going anywhere.
No, he absolutely is not going.
You really want to look into something again. Look into
Aaron Dean.
No, Darren
Wilson.
Darren Wilson.
Yep.
That's a perfect. I mean, he's a guy. Like I said, we've talked about before. He's never going to work on law enforcement again. I don't know what he's doing, but he
disappeared.
Everything
plastic surgery. He disappeared.
He had plastic surgery.
Yes.
You're lying.
No,
he had plastic surgery to change his look.
Yes.
Wow.
100% factual. Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I hypothetically, allegedly, know that 1 degree removed. Yes.
Can we get him on? I mean, I wouldn't wear this, but it would be an interest. I mean, he's got nothing to lose. He did his job. Everything after the fact, it came out, the whole hands up, it weren't up, don't shoot. He never said it, like all that jazz. So this guy lost his job, lost his career, uprooted his family, destroyed his life over a fallacy. None of that shit went down.
That whole stretch was, I mean, you pick one, Darren Wilson, Aaron Dean, Derek Chauvin, Pantaleo. These were all political prisoners, literally. I mean, the
Pantaleo case. I mean, what they don't talk about there is that a police chief actually called the CO of his command and said, "Get down there," because he was getting pressure from the neighborhood folks through local smaller politicians saying, "Hey, we have store owners here that have a business to run, a legitimate business, and this guy's set up in front of the store selling illegally taxed or untaxed illegal cigarettes. Can you get rid of them?" And that guy had been told more than one time, "Don't be here." So when those guys showed up that day, he basically said, like we said earlier, "Not today." That was his response. "Not today." And as a matter of fact, I think there's actually video of him saying, "I'm not going today. Like this isn't happening today." Like,
yeah, what do you do? If you're Pantaleo,
well, if you turn around and walk away, you
can't. That's not an option.
It's not
an option. Absolutely.
So at that point, do you call for ESU? Because I think that's the direction it's going. The patrol cop has a situation where the guy's not physically combative right now, but once you start to arrest them, they do. You step back, call ESU, have them come in. This is what they do. This guy's under arrest. He's not going to go. What did he do wrong?
You can't do that.
Well, you can. You can because
that's unreasonable. No, that's not reasonable.
But that's the answer. So if you're the cop that wants to protect yourself and you think this is going to go south, you ask for more, right? You ask for more. Get more people here. Get me the CO. Get me my lieutenant.
What are you gonna do?
Hey Lou, what should I do? What should I do here?
You're gonna stand there for 15 minutes with somebody that you just said that you're under arrest. And what are you guys gonna do? Stand there? What are you gonna play cards while you're waiting?
Do you think Danny Pantaleo, if he had that option right now, he'd say, "Yeah, maybe I would have done that"?
That's not even fair to do that.
Why is it not fair?
Because that's Monday morning quarterback.
No. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying he should have done that. I'm saying in hindsight, if that was an option. You don't think they may have said that to themselves? Like, "Hey, all right, guys, we don't want to be the next blah. Let's call. Get me another unit. Get me 3 units."
Now in retrospect, looking how it played out, but no, I mean, no. If I'm telling you you're under arrest, that's it. Like, I'm not waiting. We're getting this in right now.
So then let them write the procedure, the policy and procedure on how you handle a human being that you're going to arrest that says, "I'm not getting arrested today." Where's that policy? It doesn't exist because you're taught in the police academy that once the arrest has been announced, you've made a decision. This person is going to jail today. Then you have to do what you have to do to get them under control.
Yes.
Simple as that.
Yes.
So what do you say to that guy? Sir, I mean, how long, the amount of time it would take for you to talk this person down to actually following your orders, you could have another 3 or 4 cars there. Or how about a supervisor? Oh, by the way, the supervisor was there. The black female sergeant was on scene, saw the whole thing, had no problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, that everybody in that period of time, they were just fed to the mob.
Yeah.
Different specific reasons relative to the departments that were involved, but the generic reason is they were fed to the mob. These people were trying to politically protect themselves. By these people, I mean the administration. It was much easier for them to serve these individual cops up than it was to actually defend these cops who were fucking right.
And it worked because there weren't riots in Staten Island. They didn't burn down the borough because of it. Now, would they have done it if Penaleo wasn't charged? I don't know. Again, you want to play Monday Morning Quarterback or predict the future. You don't know. But your default.
Well, no,
the administration's default should always be protect the cop. And that's what it always was. And now the administration's default is not to protect the cop. It's to suspend the cop or fire them and fight to get your job back.
I mean, but you do know. You say, well, we don't know. They hung Chauvin. There was no reason if they say, no justice, no peace. Chauvin went to jail.
Yeah.
What the fuck more were you looking for? What justification did you have
to
they wanted
burn
to cities down?
They could have hauled Chauvin out there in the middle of Minneapolis and put a bullet in his head, and they still would have rioted.
They had no justification.
Yeah, but Minneapolis and Portland, they're powder kegs just waiting for. New York isn't a powder keg waiting for the next blah. Where Portland and Minneapolis, these are powder kegs, Baltimore, waiting to blow up.
This is what they're trying to stir back up. It's a psyop, bro. I mean, let me get my tinfoil hat out. It's a psyop. The Democrats know. I shouldn't say Democrats because it's not really party specific. The elites. And they're on both sides of the aisle. Something happened in the last election cycle where they saw demographics all over the country come together like never before, and that shook them.
But
they need division.
And you hit a really good point there. Election cycle. You can bring it right down to specific incidences and where the election cycles fall. And a great example is what's going on right now. Eddie Byrne was a cop in Jamaica, Queens. He was murdered, I think 83, 84, sitting in front of a witness's house because she was going to testify. He was going to testify against the local drug guys. They sent a team of guys out there. They killed Eddie Byrne sitting in his car in uniform in a marked car in front of the house. That guy that did that has been in jail for 36 years. He's up for a parole board hearing again. Now, we also know that I think we talked about it in the last show. How many? I think there was, I want to say 40 convicted cop killers in the last 30 years have been released on parole. He's up for parole. The parole board, which is a board of 16 people placed by the governor, 11 of those 16 members of the New York State Parole Board were placed there by Andrew Cuomo. He's running for mayor of New York City. The primaries are in June 15th, 18th, whatever it is.
Something happened with him just recently, though. I think they're going to try to fuck him out of that.
Well, they're not going to. They're looking at his involvement in the deaths over COVID and the nursing home stuff.
Okay.
So they're looking into whether or not what he knew and what he didn't know, and whether he's responsible for any of that.
I'm sorry, keep going.
They've delayed the parole board hearing until after the Democratic primaries in New York City. Why? Because the governor Hochul, who was put in place by Governor Cuomo, who is running for New York City mayor, turned around. And again, this is all speculation, but it seems to me that the parole board has pushed back his hearing so that it's after the primary, because God forbid they actually release this animal, that will be negatively affected Cuomo's run in the primaries. Now, mind you, Adams is running as an independent, which means Cuomo is going to run basically unchallenged in the Democratic Party. You're going to have Democrat Cuomo, you're going to have the independent Adams, and a host of other people, including Curtis Sliwa. Tell me that's not a political play here. They push back this guy. Listen, he killed a cop. He's in jail. He should never get out. And they're worried that he actually might get out. And by getting out, it's going to hurt Cuomo. Political election interference. Just let the system work the way it's supposed to work. Let it take its course. Deny him like you're supposed to deny him, and deal with it later for his next hearing. Whatever. We talked about it in the last show with Tony Dwyer's hearing. The murder is for him. They kept pushing it back, and then they got a new date, and then the family has to keep going down there and keep going, and the Byrne family has to keep going down there. And now there's a potential this guy's going to get out.
You're re-victimizing the victim.
Well,
you're 100%.
But you know what though? if you really want to keep this guy in jail, then the victims need to be re-victimized, unfortunately, because there's just no way around it.
It should never be even a fucking debate, bro. These guys should never be up for parole.
But it's like a victim statement. Someone has to show up and say, this is why. You need to look into my face, look into my eyes, not with these glasses and this mustache, and say, hey,
it is kind of creepy.
It is creepy. Isn't it? This is why this guy should not be out. This is why this guy should die in jail. And now they just push that back for political reasons, which is horseshit. Just horseshit.
100%.
I mean, no one's talking about it. You know, the governor's office is not talking about it. Cuomo's not talking about it. We're not stupid. We know what time it is.
Well, they think we are.
They
think we are, and that's the bigger picture. I mean, politically, when you look at, and again, like I said, it's not partisan. It's both sides. There are
Hochul saying, I'm going to give you $800 back to every taxpaying member in New York City to counter the congestion pricing in Manhattan. That's her take. You know what? It costs me $9 every day I drive in. All right, so give me $800. It's twice a day. That's going to cover me for what, 3 months? Big deal.
I mean, dude, this is the awakening that has happened. I mean, the elites on both sides of the aisle, they really think we are fucking stupid. They really do. The stuff that they are trying to sell us, it shows you what they think of us. And I don't get it, bro.
It is what it is, though. You know, it's New York City, it's New York State, it's
everywhere.
It's not. Yeah, but I mean, the politics here, and they're called out right to their face, and it's just, you know, Letitia James, you know, they're gonna, New York State taxpayers are gonna pay for her defense for the things she did as a private citizen.
How is that?
The minute that she took office, they're going to claim that everything that she's done is protected by. As long as you're in this office.
No one's above the law,
I don't think she was in office, though, when she did that mortgage fraud.
Listen, when she starts defending herself, like I always say,
Trump wasn't in office when he was accused of what he did.
I call it the what had happened was. Like, right? When people start saying the what had happened was.
Let me tell you, son.
Yeah, guilt is already presumed. That's it. The innocent don't feel the need to explain themselves. And, you know, they call it a Teflon Don and all this shit that doesn't stick to Trump. He doesn't spend time defending it. He just keeps it moving because lies. Why would you defend yourself against them? If you're innocent, just keep it fucking moving. Whatever. Say whatever you want.
But here's the thing. All the things that they wanted, they dig up on Trump were all 99% of them were private business related things,
right? Which are
very different than what you do in the scope of your appointment.
Pause. To be fair, doesn't make it any less grimy.
Yes.
And you've heard me say before, and I voted for Trump 3 times. I have no shame.
That was just the last election, right? But there's no election fraud here.
I'm not a Democrat. Yeah, I voted for Trump 3 times, but I'm not unable of recognizing, you know, where he was grimy.
I think it would be unable. Enable. I think it's in.
All right, dude. Have you seen the outfit you're wearing? All right, so enable.
I'm unable. I think it's
in. To call out where he was grimy in his private life, in his business. He was absolutely a grimy fucking business.
But who in that level of business isn't? You don't think Jeff Bezos has stepped on some toes? You don't think Elon Musk has stepped on toes? You don't think Mark Cuban 100%. Has stepped on toes, or Kevin O'Leary stepped on toes, or a host of the billionaire that owns the Nets? It's a different world.
That was the whole point of him calling out Hillary Clinton in the 2016 cycle, and he said, if all of these things you're accusing me of violating or taking advantage of or whatever, if you really were that strongly against them, change them. But you won't, because all of your fucking donors are doing the same shit.
Chappelle made a whole bit about it.
Yes.
Chappelle, he said, he goes, I don't like the man. He says, but he's brilliant. I said, when Hillary called him out on it, he literally on the debate stage said, "Oh, you know what? Your supporters, they reap the rewards of this tax system just like I do. And if you want to rewrite it. But all the people that support you are going to feel it the same way you're trying to get me to feel it."
Yep.
Pretty much.
He said that he was the first guy that walked out there. He said, "Hey, listen." And he looked at everybody in America and said, "The shit you think is going on back there in the White House, it's going on. And then he went back in there and did that shit.
Mhm.
He don't care. Like, he let everybody know, like, you're not paranoid. Like, the shit that you think is
it's
happening.
happening.
No, it's really happening. Like, you're not
But
paranoid.
that is the way business gets done. Like if you,
Yes.
I don't care what you name, whatever you do in your life, whether it's your what you do
Porn.
at home, you do at
Porn.
your job,
Porn.
porn.
No, I
Again, even porn. So there are
sick.
limits. There are limits to what porn is acceptable, right? When you watch,
I mean, I don't know
would
if-
put a lot of people in jail.
yes,
but
probably.
but it happens. It's the price of doing business. Simple as that. How many people have gotten an advantage someplace along the lines in whatever they did? Whether it's a you got pulled over on the highway and you're a cop and you got let go, or if you're a nurse in a hospital and your family member come in and you went to the front of the line. There are things that happen. Simple as that. One of the hot things now is that he's addressing the military, and people are, how can a draft dodger address the military? Look, he had a deferment just like Clinton did, and I don't get angry at them. Vietnam was not a happy time. Let me tell you something right now. If we went to a full-on, full-scale war right now, and they were pulling the draft, I would fight tooth and nail to keep my kids at home. It's
Yes.
simple as that.
Yes.
I would have no problem saying, hey, I'm 53 years old. What can you use me for? I don't want my kids to do that. I don't want my kids to die there. I don't want them. I get it. There are other ways to fight the fight without having to stand over there. And that's what Trump did. And that's what Clinton did. And that's what so many others did. There's nothing wrong with Trump addressing West Point because he didn't serve or because he called
He's the commander in chief.
Yeah, but no.
Stop. He's the commander in chief.
What they bring up is that he attacked John McCain and John McCain's service. And he said something like, well, you
my
got caught.
God.
So look, and we've known this to be true, that what happens on the campaign trail isn't real. When Joe Biden called, when Kamala Harris called Joe Biden a racist on stage during the primaries, right? Called him to his face a racist in 2020.
And she wasn't wrong.
She wasn't wrong.
And she wasn't wrong.
All right. So then what happens? He gets the nod. He picks her as vice president. All of a sudden, that went out the window. We
Correct.
say things and we do things. We don't always believe it, but we say it to garner
That's
support.
politicians. But two things. I'm glad you brought up Vietnam because it's important for this generation, this point in time, I should say. There's not this generation to recognize that everything is cyclical, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we see going on, and the people are like, oh, how could these, kids hate the United States and bringing up all the universities and this and that. You bring up the Vietnam era. They were spitting on veterans. They were spitting on veterans. So to think that this is something new, that that what we're seeing from the youth of today is something shocking and new. No, this has happened before. Everything is cyclical.
Yeah, but if you talk to some of those guys, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for any veteran, anyone that stands up there, puts their hand up, and swears to defend what we have. I have nothing but the most respect. I have great friends. I have family members that served in the military. This is not a dig at any of you. This is not a, you did something that someone else should have done type of thing. But I will tell you this, and this is my opinion. If you take any one of the millions of folks that served in either one of those conflicts or the 50 other conflicts that we've been in and said, hey, had a really hard time, it was awful, right? If you could have not done that, maybe you had a job somewhere, you were doing, would you have, no one would have chose to do that. There are a lot of people that volunteer for Vietnam. A lot of people volunteer for World War II, World War I, Korean conflict, you name it, Saudi, you name it, lots of volunteers. The people that got pulled in that didn't want to go there, I bet if you asked a lot of them, like, hey, if you could have done it differently, would you? You can't tell me that some of them would have said no. Did you see Band of Brothers? You think he'd grab any one of those guys and said, hey, if you had an option then, because they didn't have an option. They didn't have an option. If you gave them an option and said, hey, Bill Grenier, if you could have stayed in bumfuck Pennsylvania, wherever you were, and you went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Blah and didn't have to go, would you have done that? A lot of guys would have said, yeah, of course. I'm proud of what I did, but it sucked ass.
I don't know. That was a different. That was the greatest generation.
I'm not arguing that.
So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if they. I mean, Vietnam different. But you get back to
talk to a survivor. Talk to a survivor who lost someone over there and said, "Hey, you know what? If blah 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 could have gotten out of that for this," and not lying about it. Like there were loopholes. They took advantage of the loophole. It wasn't like they went to Canada They didn't leave the country. They
Ew.
didn't renounce their citizenship to get out of serving. Stop.
I'm sorry.
So yeah,
Fucking Canada.
that's again. I'm always afraid of what I say might offend people, and I have no problem if you're offended by my filthy mouth or whatever the hell as I do.
Well,
but that
Linda
opinion
is.
my
Linda
opinion.
is. Linda says, "Please stop cursing."
I've been really good with the cursing though. You curse more than I do.
That is true.
I know
That is true. And I'm sorry to hijack. I know this is probably not what you wanted your second segment to be, but you know how I get. I get fired up with
no.
this
There's
shit.
no.
It's
Once we do the second half, it's off the rails. We don't. There's the points that we wanted to hit are there, and now it's opinion and roller coaster and you know me. I love being devil's advocate, and I don't badmouth police, military. But
no, I don't. Listen, offering a differing opinion. Nobody knows. Nobody has to question where you stand.
And again, I can have that discussion with anyone, and I would
Yes.
honor and respect your opinion if you honor and respect mine. And again, I wasn't in that position. I wasn't the person standing there saying, "Oh, I have no other choice," because a lot of these guys, men and women, felt they didn't have a choice. Right? What else am I going to do? Before I got in the police academy, it was the last class I was eligible for from the test that I took was expiring. But the class that I went in '94, if I didn't get that class, my test died. I would have to take the test again. And that was right around Desert 92. There's that Desert Storm. And me and my friends, we had that discussion. Like, do we join up? We had medical training. I said, yeah, we can, we can do some stuff and figure stuff out. And I think it's a good thing to do. And then I got called. So it was off the table for me. But I would have done it. I'm not saying don't do it. Especially now. Now they're you're getting an education. There are so many more opportunities in the military now that there never was. So you be, but we had the GI Bill and blah blah blah. Yeah, but it's very different. You can selectively choose, or at least they give you the option to selectively choose an area that you want to train in. My old partner's son now is in tank school. He's in tank school. He's going to be in a tank. His other son was communications. He worked in a building in Virginia. He was doing his part. He didn't have to be in the sand. Decision he made. They paid for his education. He got his education and he served his country. Fine. These guys aren't grunts on the front lines. Is there ever going to be a front line again for us? Hopefully not. We throw a couple of, now you can say, oh, the ships out in the Gulf. Yeah, they are on the front lines, but they're not Vietnam, World War II front lines. Very different, but the dangers are the same, and they take the same risks, and they should be rewarded accordingly.
100%.
Anyway, all right, we'll wrap up with.
Sorry, that's my fault.
No, and I was getting at the state trooper in Mineola, New York, the guy that said he was shot on the highway, and then about 2 years ago, he claimed he was shot on the highway. He put a description over of a car. Turns out that he got shot with a .22 rifle at the house.
Oof.
And then his dad, who's also a retired trooper, I think trooper, maybe state police, maybe cop, convinced him that, yeah, you know what, you gotta, this is how we're gonna play this. And he claimed to have been shot line. Dude,
Let me quarterback this.
Yeah, he totally quarterbacked, and they fucked it up. If he stays at home and says, I was cleaning my .22 and it went off and I got shot in the leg, that guy's working still. It happens. But he fabricated this story about being shot on the highway by a guy in a car. And now you got all these state police and local police and Nassau County guys, Suffolk County, all looking for a car that didn't exist, for a driver that doesn't exist, that had a gun that didn't exist. And he pled guilty. Like, what are you thinking? Like, what was this guy thinking? There's no defense for this. There's no defense at all.
No, none.
They slip through the cracks. It happens. I don't know. But he had a sweet. So this is the plea deal that he got. I won't say his name. He agreed to serve 6 months in jail, followed by 5 years of probation, mental health treatment, and had to pay $289,000 in restitution for the overtime cost to run an investigation for a crime that didn't get committed. 27 years old.
Ugh.
Done. His parents also charged with the cover up. Like,
Oh,
what do you,
nice.
as a parent,
wow.
think about you're a cop, right? You're a cop, you're retired, your son, your daughter, maybe your neighbor, anyone comes to you and this happens. That is not the best advice to give. Were you advising him to become a hero? Were you advising him to be a victim? No. I was cleaning my 22 in the house. It went off. I shot myself in the leg. You go on, you have a career.
Yep.
You go on,
100%.
you have a career. This guy slipped through the cracks. But the psych evaluation in the police department isn't exactly what it's cracked up to be. And we're actually going to cover that in a future show. That process of applicant investigations, which is in New York City, is flawed for lots of reasons. And I've got really great data to back it up.
Rich Dougherty. You know?
Rich. Yeah, maybe I heard of him.
All right. Well, he says, bro, you look like Norm with AIDS.
Rich was on last week. He's fish responders.
Yes.
Yeah, come on, guy. No,
Dude,
all right.
890 on my SATs, bro.
Norm with AIDS.
I mean, yeah.
You see
Yeah,
it?
you kind of do.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Go Bears. All right, what do we got? What are we wrapping up with? What's coming up? Apparently, we have to be kind of careful with what we advertise and what we promote. My company, Line of Duty Cigars, can be found on the website. Just do a little due diligence. My company is called Line of Duty Cigars. The website is not awfully different.
Line of Duty Cigars.
Samplers, golf outings, steak nights, cigar nights, you name it. Hit me up. We'll definitely make it nice. That's what we do. Next show, what do you got? Who's on next?
I think you are scheduled the 31st.
No, I'm going to be at Billy Currington.
You are not scheduled on the 31st.
Taking my crutchety, broken leg daughter upstate to see Billy Currington on a farm. That's actually going to kind of be pretty cool, I think. Bring your own chair. Oh, yeah. Bring a wagon with your chair and a blanket, cigars.
What's the address of your farm?
It's not at my farm. It's at another farm. Billy Currington is not coming to my farm.
Oh, wait.
We're going to another farm.
Wait. So wait.
Next week.
I got to be clear on this.
See Billy
Are you going to the farm?
No.
Or no? Are you?
No, I've never had to go to the farm. A farm.
Oh, a farm.
It's funny how the farm to cops is one thing, and a farm to anyone else is something very different. I have a funny story. I have a friend of mine that went to the farm. Actually, I can't tell that story. Never mind.
What's
No, I can't tell it. Can't tell it. Anywho,
yeah, we're getting dinged for that too. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm sure we are. We're not playing Campy's stupid song, though. That's all I care about. Don't do it. Motherfucker.
I mean, you shouldn't have dared me.
The Bears. The Bears.
You shouldn't have dared me.
Mm-hmm.
So when are you back, Tommy? Honestly, I mean,
well, it depends. Do you want me to come in Bob Swarovski uniform or just regular me?
just regular you.
Full size me or 14-inch me?
Mini you.
Because I got 14 inches. Trust me. Trust me.
You know, you do.
All right, man. All right. Don't trust me. Don't trust me. It's not 14. It's like a foot. It's like a foot. Not really a foot. Like a couple inches.
Soon. We'll put the graphic up that has all the dates and coming up. And I'm very disappointed that you're not here on the 31st.
Billy Currington's going to be disappointed if I don't go see the show, I think.
Yeah.
He likes me.
He doesn't.
Yeah, he does. Everyone likes me.
You're a good man.
The Bears.